Great, thank you. And thank you everyone who's joined the session today. Let me just get my slides going here. Perfect. So I know we just had the session on the crumbling cookie, what that means, what the end of third-party cookies means, and the importance of first-party data. So we're going to build on that in the session today. Like I said, in my role at OneTrust, it's really exciting because in the past, I've worked more with IT teams, security teams on enterprise software and the technology front. And in my role at OneTrust, I get to work actually with marketers and work with them to integrate themselves into privacy program. I think there's a huge opportunity for marketers and for brands with the regulations, with changing consumer expectations, to really exploit that when it comes to weaving in privacy, weaving in data protection as part of your brand and your messaging in order to earn that trust from your audience and tap into new data sources, first-party data sources that come directly from your customers and your audience, as we can't rely on some of those third-party data sources like cookies anymore. So we're going to look a little bit at the changing privacy landscape, some of the changing consumer expectations, talk a little bit about first-party data capture, and then I want to share with you a little bit of kind of the return on investment of earning trust from your audience, investing in this area, and what the payoff really is. I know trust can be kind of an intangible metric. So there are things that we can measure to make sure that we're moving forward with earning trust from our audience. So when we look at what's changing, we obviously have some changes with the browsers. The biggest change with Chrome, of course, announcing the end of third-party cookies by the year 2022. So in about a year, third-party cookies completely going away. We also know that our audiences increasingly care about privacy. So in a recent study, this one is from Deloitte, 80% of consumers say that they're more likely to purchase from companies that they believe protect their personal information. Close to that number want to share their data, their personal data, if there's a clear benefit to them. But less than a third of those consumers actually say that they think that they know which companies, which brands are protecting their personal information. So here I see a huge gap between what customers are willing to share, what kind of brands they want to work with, and the education and the knowledge that they have about which brands or organizations that applies to. So obviously a huge opportunity here for marketers to think about, how do I educate my audience and earn that trust with them? How do I educate them about how I'm protecting their personal information so that they can trust me as a brand? And what we're seeing with our customers is that at the board level, looking at trust, looking at transparency is a key part of how brands are going to differentiate themselves moving forward and build on the differentiation of price, quality, the experience we provide, the engagement we have with our consumers. Trust and transparency are really how brands will differentiate themselves going forward. And why is there such a big focus on trust, on transparency? We know that data that's going to come directly from our audience, that first party data, is so valuable to us as a brand that's going to be critical going forward for us. And a little bit of a review just to make sure we're on the same page. Looking at different data types, we obviously have third-party data that we aggregate today from different sources. This is what's really going to change with the end of things like third-party cookies. We also have Apple that's introduced new changes for tracking technologies within their apps with the latest iOS release. And I think as marketers, we can anticipate more and more of these changes, not only from the technologies that we rely on, but also from new laws, new regulations, as well as the changes that our audience demands from us. We also have the concept of second-party data, usually coming from brands and organizations that we're partnered with. And then first-party data coming directly from consumers, as well as zero-party data, termed by Forrester, kind of a subset of first-party data, but it comes directly from our audience, is not part of a transaction or any kind of requirement for working with the brand. So given really freely and proactively by our audience. Now, in order to kind of earn the right to ask for this data and to collect it from our audience, there's a few different strategies that we can implement in order to earn trust when we're collecting data. So the first we want to focus on is with transparency. So what exactly are we collecting? How clear is that? What are we going to use that data for? The second area to focus on is education. So what's going to happen if I, as a consumer, share my data? What can I expect now that I share this data? Am I going to get emails from you? Are you going to do you put things in place to secure my data and protect my data? How safe is it for me to share personal information about myself with you? And that type of thing. And then finally, we're going to want to make sure that we have a clear value exchange. So what are we going to provide in exchange for this data? If I share some personal details about me, about my intentions, about things that I'm looking for maybe in a product, can I expect better personalization? Can I expect a better experience when it comes to maybe the content that I get from this brand, or the tailored products and services that I get based on sharing more personal information? What am I able to get as a consumer as a value exchange out of sharing this information with you? And a big part of that is making sure that we have the proper consent and preference management in place. And really what that allows us to do is bring privacy and personal information together. So we see that consumers are increasingly willing to share personal information if there's transparency involved specifically. So making sure that we're focused on that transparent user experience, bringing in the information that our consumers need to know about what we're collecting, what we're going to do with that data, educating them about that, making sure that there's a clear value exchange. What are we going to do with this information? How are we going to personalize our content, our products and services going forward as a result of having this information is going to be key for brands going forward. So when we look at really what the value of first party data and kind of where marketers should get started, we obviously want to make sure that we are able to associate different data with different users, different members of our audience, and different customers. So make sure there's a way for us to identify those users by an email address or a phone number, maybe an account number. And then we want to make sure that we have the ability to what we call progressively profile those visitors. So how are we going to build on the profile that we have about these users, take the data that we have about them and continue to build on that data when they visit our website, maybe when they come in store and visit us, when they provide more information about themselves, when they register for certain events that we're hosting, or sign up for newsletters with specific content. All of that can be used to build a richer profile around our audience and our customers. And that all goes into making sure that we have collection points set up. Collection points meaning where are we engaging with our audience to collect this data, and where is there an opportunity for us to be transparent, be educational, and have a clear value exchange in order to earn that trust and collect that information. And then finally, we want to make sure that we are activating the data that we have. And what I mean by activate the data is that making sure that we are collecting the data, doing what we say we're going to do with it. So if we promise more personalized experiences, we obviously want to share the data that we've collected from our audience and from consumers with our other systems, with our other marketing tools, so that we make sure that their choices and their opt-ins, the consent that they give, the subscriptions, what they subscribe to, is honored throughout all of their interactions with our sales and our marketing activities. So making sure that it can be, the data that they're providing can be referenced in our CRM systems, in our marketing automation systems, with identity providers to kind of round out those customer profiles that are so important. We want to make sure that we're not just creating data in a silo or asking our customers or our audience for information that we aren't able to do anything with, and that then that value exchange kind of breaks down for our audience, and that can, you know, harm the trust and the goodwill that we've built up. And I quickly want to touch on a really great example, not only for moving towards a first-party data strategy, but kind of as a marketer, leveraging this investment in a new area, to be transparent with your audience, to educate them, and to kind of have that value exchange. So last year, in 2020, the New York Times announced that they were phasing out all third-party advertising data. They were not relying on third-party cookies anymore. And instead, they offered their advertisers 45 unique audience segments based on not only demographic data, but also kind of personal interests, things, information that came directly from their audience. And what they did is they not only implemented this change, you know, proactively ahead of third-party cookies completely going away, which is kind of necessary for marketers and for brands. But they also they made sure that this was explained to their audience and kind of heavily promoted. They took advantage of the fact that they, you know, are being more of a privacy first organization and really promoting what they're doing to protect their audience. And they publicized it and they talked about it and they educated their audience. So a great kind of branding opportunity to continue to be transparent, educational, explain that value exchange to your audience, but be seen as a privacy leaning brand and organization as well. So just to reiterate how important trust is and kind of that intrinsic trust with your audience, almost all customers that report some level of loyalty have some level of trust in the brand that they are loyal to. And we're seeing this criteria increase with our audiences. So many of our customers are saying that trusting a brand is more important today than in the past. And trust is second only to price when it comes to both initial purchasing and loyalty. So really critical when it comes to getting that first time purchaser, getting new customers kind of interested in our brand and working with us, as well as retaining that relationship for future purchasing decisions. So some immediate steps for success: look at the customer journey, look at where you're already engaging customers, look at where you can kind of infuse that transparency to provide users with more control. You can also implement things that will reduce unsubscribes and drive better opt-in rates by earning that trust. And then finally, making sure that you can activate that data, sync the information that you collect throughout your MarTech stack and throughout your internal systems, so that you're making sure that you're acting on what you're collecting from your audience. We have lots of resources available at preferencechoice.com geared specifically towards marketers and those in the publishers and those in the ad tech space. So I encourage you to check that out to learn more. And again, my name is Claire Feeney. Thank you for joining our session today. And I'd love to hear from you about any first-party data strategies that you're looking at, how you're thinking about building trust with your audience, and what that impact would be for your brand. So I have my contact details here and would love to hear from you if you have any questions.